Brian, Bonilla, welcome back. Round of applause.
We get an applause. We get an applause button
Do
yet?
I have
I
a
don't
sound button? I
know.
got the Riverside here. There's got to be like a built-in button, but we'll fix that in the post there. Brian, welcome back. How you been, man?
Thank
I
you.
missed
Thank you.
you.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I missed you too, man. Look, I had to take a little bit of a break, but we're good. We're good now. And the good thing is that it's always good to take a break in the summer. Like I think things slow down a bit. I don't know how you feel about the industry in the summer, but things slow down a little. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Hold on. I think I can figure this thing out. Preview. Where is the drum? I thought I had it.
Well,
Hey, Brian is back, ladies and gentlemen. You got a
I
couple.
gotta start with a joke. Oh,
Well,
that's a intense.
let's start it from the.
That's
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Bonilla is back.
Okay.
I like this.
What if
We're gonna.
what if it just went on way too long? It's just like a minute long
I'm
pause.
gonna have way too much fun with these intros. But yes, Brian, I'm gonna keep this all in because that's how we are.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
do.
Breaks in the summer are good. I need to take more of those. But I love working. I love doing this podcast. It's like therapy for me. I learn and we get to help people. So that's my rationale why I
Yeah.
don't take too many breaks.
Yeah. Well, look, we gotta take breaks when you can get them.
True.
So take care of yourself.
True. Good lesson.
Take,
Good
but
lessons.
good life lesson. Good life lesson.
What are we going to talk
Uh,
about? It's been a while. It's been a while, Brian, since
yeah, it's
you've
been a
been on the
while.
show. So how do you want to run this bad boy? This is your baby. You
Yeah, I
tell
think,
me.
look, like, there's a lot, I think, in the next few episodes that we're going to probably unpack. I think, we had our small agency conference earlier this summer, and that's something like I'd love to talk more about small agencies at some point on this podcast. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have special guests. We have a lot coming up, and there have been a lot of stories that have been kind of churning, and I think for this episode, I'm really interested in this idea of like speed in the industry, right? And, there's been a lot of talks about AI and how that's kind of speeding up, the way that work gets done, the process and all that. But there's another model that I started seeing popping up, these sprint models, these sprint agencies actually. And I actually did a story on that. And it's actually one of our more popular stories in the past few weeks. And it was focused on these agencies. And I think you interviewed one of these agencies, XNO.
Yes, sir.
They're focused on basically like, we can come up with a great idea in 5 days and here, and they sell it to the client for like a flat fee, you know? And that was just I thought it was kind of a one-off type agency. And then there was another one that popped up called Beers with Friends.
Beers
Uh,
with friends.
Good name.
Okay.
That's a good name. And it was a former Walmart executive and a former publicist, ECD, who worked on Walmart, and they founded a similar kind of model agency. And basically the story was focused on like what are these different models, what are the different tweaks, and how do you actually run it, right? Because like it's one thing to say you can come up with an idea in like 5 days, but like how does that actually work? And it was kind of fascinating to see like you know, how do you have to think about like staffing these agencies? Like, who are the right type of people that fit this type of model? Like, because I do wonder, like, what does this mean for the future of advertising, right? Like, it is a niche thing right now, but there are other agencies that I saw are implementing this offering, even if they're a traditional agency, they are implementing this type of offering. So yeah, like it's kind of fascinating to me, like this really focus on speed, but also kind of getting rid of the traditional new business way of working. Obviously, I know that's something you're familiar on, but if you don't have to necessarily pitch, as an agency that does sprints, like that kind of gets rid of that as well. Um,
Yeah, this is interesting. So and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I'm saying it like Havas Chicago calls it spark sessions. And they're like, you
yeah,
put all the creatives, like the strategy comes up with a brief, creatives are in a room. Essentially, you get like a team, like a mid-sized team, like a small team, couple teams on it. And they work all day, like 8 hours. There's a lunch built in, and they work on it morning. They're briefed in the morning, and then they go away and they come back. They're working in the room, and in theory, by the end of that day, maybe potentially 2 days, I think they have like an absurd amount of good ideas. And what they do is they eliminate like other assignments for those creatives for that period. So it takes a lot of creative resourcing. The
yeah,
resource manager has to really like put those parameters so they're not worried about anything else. But it centers it, puts focus in on it, and it comes up with like really good ideas. And like perhaps that's what these models that you discovered are doing. Maybe there's agencies built around it, but traditional agencies, full service agencies are kind of figuring this out too within their ecosystem, it seems like.
you're right. And you know, that's the interesting thing of this. It's not exactly new, but the new part is there's agencies completely building their entire model
Right.
around that one offering. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
which is like fascinating because I think that has to do with like what are clients looking for from agencies these days. I spoke to the CMO of Dig. I don't know if you've eaten at Dig before. Dig in. They're more New York, East Coast, I would say,
I haven't,
QSR.
yeah.
And you know, the CMO came from Taco Bell, where they had a similar company that like incubated ideas, and then they dispersed that across agencies.
Mm.
And she was looking for this type of model, and I, you know, clients like Coca-Cola, Alibaba, and all that are, you know, a Major League Baseball team. Like, there's a lot of clients that are like utilizing this. Bose worked with Depth on a design sprint. You know, there's a lot of clients that are looking for this. So I'm curious if like this is going to be the way of working in the future, you
To
know?
me, it seems like it's great for pitching. It's great
Right.
to get the bones of a campaign or a big idea out there, get it very quickly. And then how do you execute? Like to me, then it takes time to execute beautiful,
Right.
crafted stuff that you need some longer leg room in. So to me, it seems like it's top level. It's like the first
Yeah.
big idea, and then it takes time to craft it out. Are you
Yeah,
seeing that?
and you're right. It's these agencies aren't necessarily saying they're going to execute. They're giving you the idea, and then you can give it to another agency if they want
Right.
to execute it. And what was really interesting that I didn't get to go too deep on was the CMOs were talking about how much they wanted to be co-collaborators, how much more they wanted to be involved in the early stages, and how a lot of agencies maybe tradition. I think you know there's this like fascination with creative agencies, right? Of like there's some agencies that I know that specialize in like telling the client what to do because they come up with an idea. They're very like proud of the idea. There's something wrong with that. But there's some clients that like kind of don't like this like feeling of like, all right, being told like, all right, this is the idea and this is how it's gonna be done. And then the client just either buys it or they don't, right? I think this way the client feels more involved. It's easier for them to sell across, you know, sell to their boss, you know, like I don't know, there's a lot of nuances there that even if you're not thinking of a sprint exactly, you know, like maybe there's you should I think agencies should pay attention to what why are clients actually interested in this, right? I don't know if you've spoken to like Nice and Frank. Have you heard of them before?
I have. I haven't
Talked with
talked
them
with
though.
them though.
Yeah, they, you know, they the founder of Brandcam, which is a could be, it's a similar type of model where like, you know, you get like CEOs and top level executives at a weekend retreat or like a few days and you like break down all the challenges and a whole bunch of like nuances of your business. And then you come up with a strategy for those businesses. And that has helped could be like win business with like Blackstone and like more business with like I think Frito-Lay and PepsiCo and those companies. And the founder Brandcamp basically started his own agency, basically utilizing that model, and they were able to win Haagen-Dazs recently
And
without a formal pitch.
so the formula is spend time with the executive on the brand, understand their problems, do a workshop with them, be immersed with them, a lot of exploration, it seems like, coming up with strategies in the beginning, and then maybe you do a
Right.
creative sprint after that.
Well, that's, I think that's more the Brent Camp, nice and frank model. I think
Okay.
like, and that's what's fascinating is everyone has a different way of doing it. And originally, this started in like 2010, actually, this idea of like a design sprint. That's what it was called
Yeah.
initially. And I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it was started in Google actually. Google like Ventures. It was like it's like their fund to create startups, and they came up with the idea I think for like Google Meet or like some of their products came out of that that fund,
Yeah.
and anyway, it came out of this that's where it started, and design agencies were actually the originators of this, design and tech companies. And we're just seeing creative agencies kind of basically try to commoditize this for creatives, and I
Hmm.
don't think that's been done before. It's been more on the strategy side, a lot of times. So it's just like an interesting thing that I think agencies been trying to crack, and I think these agencies are trying to like do it in a different way. We'll see if it's long term, right?
So I was
Because
gonna ask.
it could just be seen as a niche, right? And the thing is, this doesn't leave a lot of room for like junior like level like employees, right? Because a lot of these sprints utilize former CMOs, former CCOs, and things like these are high level executives that are paid to tackle a problem in 5 days, and that's it, right? So does that have a shelf life, right? Like if you do you need more junior perspective, I feel like it could be difficult, right? Especially as we talk more about Gen Z and diversity, like you have to keep. I'm curious to see how they keep the diversity aspect with their
I have
teams
a,
moving forward.
I have a clarifying question. So we're talking about sprints, and there can be a strategy sprint at the high level. Like
Mm.
here's like what the overall creative strategy should look like. Here are the pathways you should go down, and that's maybe what X and O might specialize in. Like here's a creative brief that you can send out, and then
Right,
creatives will work on. So there's like a
right,
strategy sprint category
right,
bucket, if you will.
right, right.
But then there's also the creative sprints that are out
Mm.
there. Is
Right.
that
So
true?
it could be, I think there's always strategy involved no matter what, right?
Mm,
Especially in these sprints. So like Beers with Friends, they have like 60 different like things that you can buy, right? So it could be like a social campaign idea for a holiday, right? So they really go like granular with it. So
really?
and then if you buy like, you can buy a beer pack, right? So like five of those sessions, and then you can sparse it out throughout the year or whatever, right? And they promise you that they're only working on one client at a time, right? So that's why you
Hmm.
have to like, they say you should buy ahead of time because we're only going to do one person at a time, right? And so that's basically how they work, so they're like breaking it down even further. And so it could be, in Dig's case, they came up with like 30 ideas and they pitched it to the client. The client worked with them, and then they bought whatever ideas at the end. And Dig actually ended up hiring them longer term. Not a creative AOR, but essentially like, throughout the year, right? And I think that's a big win, for that model.
Right. Right. And the implications you were bringing up, where does this leave the junior talent? Maybe the people that without as much experience, how do
Well,
they get involved?
the good thing is there are agencies. I don't think this is gonna be like breaking the holding company model or all these like models that existed for a long time. I think it's gonna be, if anything, an offering that a lot of agencies try to like put more front and center,
Yeah.
as a selling point. I think ultimately, like, it is a good way of packaging kind of like the same way of working for some agencies, but it's also a good way to just have like a two-person team and then a whole bunch of freelancers and make a good amount of money just doing this. So I don't think juniors have to worry, but I think like you have to pay attention to why is this important. I think if anyone in the industry is paying attention to this, like a junior or not, like why do clients care and how could they learn to like work quickly? Like I would study design sprints. I would read about, like the original creator for, he wrote a book on it. Like, I think his name's Jake Knapp or Jason Knapp. I would check that out because I think it was so fascinating to read about, you know.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So when you were doing your research on this article, which got a lot of page views, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
from what you mentioned before, what was most fascinating? Like, what shocked you the most? What scared you, startled you, felt you felt some emotion potentially when you were doing your research on this?
I think like what was interesting was the prices a little bit. I think the lowest price for a sprint that I saw was about $25,000, which is not bad, I would say. And then the highest I saw was like 200,000 plus. Um, and, it didn't shock me, but it was like interesting to see the range, right? Everyone had a different way of pricing. Some do hourly rates still, so it's not
Hmm.
all flat fees. Um, and I think just like, I guess the willingness for larger clients to be open to this is what I was surprised a little more about. Like, I think, this obviously works for clients that have a smaller budget, right? But what I saw was also clients that, like giant clients that have so many projects on a regular basis. This is actually a viable model for them, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. I had a few executives tell me like this type of model threatens, the traditional creative model. Some told me in private like they think it's kind of like you know, I guess gimmicky or like, like it's not a real way it's not like real advertising or the way it should be done, right? And everyone has their opinions, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
um but I think it's just the way modern agencies are thinking, you know.
Yeah.
Um
But why though? Why do you think they have to come up with these new packages? What's the impetus behind all of this?
well, I think one agencies costs, right? Like budgets are decreasing increasingly every year, especially for creative agencies. So how do you kind of get ahead of that? You create an offering that you can get one flat fee. You don't have to worry about hourly rates as much, and you don't have to put in as much time, right? Like for the same amount of money that you probably make for a larger term client, right? And especially as more clients become more project based, this is a great way of saying like, hey, like we can help you with that project rather than trying to like completely take over the creative AOR, right? And for some agencies, that's just becoming a reality. They less and less are able to win AOR clients.
Right.
Um, but I think on the client side, marketers are coming from the agency world. They are, I think, these days becoming more modern than ever before. A lot of these marketers, they feel like they can do half of the job, like either internally or, like on their own way, right? Like I think marketers don't they're way more savvy than they used to be, especially when it comes to social media and a lot of things. So, this is a good way of like working with a client. I wrote a story about an agency that just launched this week called Citizen Inside that they're helping clients build in-house agencies. And that's the whole model there. And it's like, I just think
Interesting.
I just think that's more and more becoming a reality, right? Like, how can I prove that I can work with the marketer rather than like this like silo type relationship that I think has existed
Damn,
for a
that's
long time,
interesting.
you
All
know?
right. So you're Brian, you're an aspiring advertiser, let's say, about
Mhm.
to graduate college. We've done this exercise before. Knowing what you know now, how would you navigate? Where would you strategically want to break into, knowing what you know?
Like in general, or you mean like
Yes.
just
Like,
yeah.
would you go into a larger model? Would you try to go smaller? Like, just for your own personal career and how you see the
Mhm.
trends playing out in studying this. What do you think
Yeah.
is a good safe bet still?
I think you have to be I think earlier on you have to understand like what do the different positions do? And maybe we should do an episode on like different agency positions, right? Because I think, when I talk to like young aspiring advertisers, they'll say like I want to be a creative or I want to be in strategy or something, right? And they're not able to disseminate like what's the difference between like a copywriter or someone that is on creative but not exactly doing the writing or like design or
Like
like
art director, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's like I think one know like your position right away. I would go for like an independent, a large independent if I could, or like a holding company agency that still has some of its culture. Like
Yes.
I would look at like Martin Agency, Goodby, Silverstein. Obviously, some of the top agencies out there. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not like the easiest to get in there, right?
That's
Um,
interesting. Yeah, like there are these holding company owned agencies that still have their ethos, that still
right.
have that name.
But I
Like
will say
Arnold.
too, like,
Arnold's one that comes top of mind, like within the
right,
Hamas network that still
right.
keeps their
Arnold
brand.
still, they have their brand. I would say too, like, don't be afraid to go super specialized either. Like, there's a lot of healthcare agencies, social media agencies, type agencies in these holding companies that don't always get the front page, right? I
Hmm.
know plenty of people that are in healthcare agencies that are like making way more money than the creative agency, traditional creative agency people, and they're enjoying their job too. It's not like it's boring, right? So I think don't fall in love with this idea of like I want to work at the best creative agency, right? Like start somewhere where you think you could like the work and learn from it early.
Right. And then
I,
you can worry about the sprints and the
right.
the shifting models later
And
on
I would say
as you
keep
start to focus on your craft.
I would also like keep reading and learning about these different models because like that's gonna come up at some point, right? Like there's gonna be a client problem and maybe you'll have a solution based on like, what you read or something. Like I would say stay really like knowledgeable about the industry, but also like ways of working. A lot of the executives I talk to don't really read about the industry, but they read about like management or like processes or like just things
Hmm.
that could relate to your job.
Love it.
um and the other thing I would say like like there's this agency Dang, right, for example. It's a Gen Z focused agency. They're small. They were founded by the former CCO of Walmart. Again, another Walmart plug. um
Hmm.
Reach out to those guys because these are former executives that started their own agencies. Like, they might like give you some time to chat, right? Like, there's a lot more small agencies out there these days. That means these executives that were at large agencies or large companies are more accessible than they ever were. So I would go for those guys. I wouldn't focus as much on hitting up like Jeff Goodby, you know.
Yeah. Been there, done
So
that.
that's it.
Love that. All right,
Yeah.
Brian. I want to I have 2 minutes left here. Can we tease out what's happening in the next episode potentially?
Yeah, next up we'll have Anselmo Ramos from Gut.
Hold on, I got it.
There's applause. There's definitely yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's going long. It was 36 seconds of that. But
Oh,
for
Jesus
him,
Christ.
I should let it
Yeah, it
play
makes
out because
sense.
that's a big deal. Um,
So yeah, we'll have him on our next episode. So stay tuned. We'll talk about everything. If anyone has questions, hit up Gino or I
mhm.
on LinkedIn. Anything you want us to ask, hit us up.
Thank you for talking about the sprint models, your advice for students, Brian. It's good to have you back. Uh, Anselmo up next.
Yeah,
We'll be back soon. Quick
sounds
episode, but
good.
good stuff. Dense, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right,
Heck
man.
yeah.
This is great.